folks. I'm Storm331. Sorry for the late, early morning of streaming today. We still have plans to do more Street Fighter 6 later on today around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope everyone's had a good morning. We're going to get our round 3 of Final Fight speedrun guide out of the way. Sorry about the jump start. It's been quite a while I've done this, but we're going to go ahead and get our last load loaded up. So by the time we get into West Side, the difficulty starts picking up in terms of the game. If you made it through stages, rounds 1, 2, and pretty much everything else, you'll pretty much notice West Side's going to be a big, massive uptick because all the enemies you'll start dealing with a lot more enemies than normal. And as you can see right here, it's not a very easy thing to deal with. This is also our first encounter with the regular Andore. And fighting these guys are a lot more harder than their younger brothers, of course. But anyway, as you can definitely tell, we're going to be seeing a lot more fights like these. Anyway, round 3 is going to be more of a coverage for speedrunners. I'm going to do the best I can to describe what to do in speedrun settings, regardless if you're using turbo or not. There is a turbo category in the speedruns.com category. And basically, we're going to cover what you need to be doing, what you'll be facing, and what needs to be done. So anyway, we're going to get started right now. So like I said before, the enemies will start getting a lot more nastier when we come over here. So we're going to be... we get our first stop right around here, and we're going to be, there's going to be enemies coming off from both sides. So you'll probably see most of your health get drained here. And that's because we got a large amount of the weaker enemies, but now we have an Andore here. Unlike his younger brother, the Andores have like very high health in general. So they're not very easy to deal with. So if you're not comfortable about fighting all of them with auto fire or regular punching, you can always grab weapons. Breaking any of these cans, and this sign will always yield weapons. Yeah, luckily most of these enemies don't have a whole lot of high health, but you still have to be very careful. We still have the Andore to deal with. And he'll more than likely charge at you. So don't be afraid to whip out your extra joy to get you some breathing space. Now, one thing to keep in mind about the pipe and sword, which I haven't really gone into much discussion, is that it requires you to hit the enemies from the middle of the weapon as opposed to the tip. So as you can see right here, I tried to hit the Andore with the tip of the pipe, but it did not register. So basically, when you're using the sword or the pipe, make sure you're striking them in the middle of the weapon, not in the tip of it, because it doesn't register. So when we get to this next point, we got 2 rounds of enemies coming in. Of course, we got Elgatos coming in, and they're pretty much more annoying than the Hollywoods. And that's because Elgatos have very high HP. They're very easy to deal with. Once you get done with that, we have our last final enemy, Wanhu, who's part of the last of the Mad Gear Headbutt Brigade. But anyway, these are the only 2 enemies you do have to deal with, for the most part. There are going to be some weapons. There is a chicken that in one of the barrels that you break afterwards. So anyway, once you get done here, we'll complete this section, and one of the Andore members will come out to grab us. So I'm going to go ahead and save right here, because we're going to be dealing with the Andore Clan coming up. So if you're playing one player, you're going to deal with Grandpa and Uncle Andore. So basically, shout outs to Rushiki channel for the strats against the Andore Clan. If you want to find out more about Final Fight boss strats for the arcade, be sure to check out Rushiki's channel on YouTube. My apologies if I can't say the names right. But anyway, that's how you could basically do it with Hagar. You can easily chuck one of the Andores back at the other and then just keep them at bay with infinites with Cody and Guy. You can also use weapons as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that these bosses are they're treated as bosses. So if you don't want to go up too close and personal, you can always take a weapon like the pipe and the sword and just whack them away. But keep in mind, though, just like the bosses in Final Fight 1, they do get brief invincibility frames, so they will not be attacked right after you knock them down and they get back up. So you can also use weapons to protect yourself, assuming they don't charge at you at least. So we're going to do one more fight with these guys. But technically, you do have to be careful, though, because the Andores can wipe out your health bar pretty quickly if you're not careful. Yeah, in some cases, they do love to charge a whole lot. So basically, you want to get rid of Father Andore and Grandpa Andore as quickly as possible. There is one other Andore that is playable, that is fought in this level, aside from the father and grandpa Andores, and that's Uncle Andore. But he only appears during two-player battles. So if you're playing with two players, be ready to deal with three Andores. So anyway, let's go ahead and do this one more time. So thanks to Hagar, we can easily get the invincibility frames and just avoid getting damaged. But you have to be very careful when you're playing as Cody and Guy because they don't get that same benefit. Well, they do, but it just wears off faster. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and save right here. So the next thing we need to do is break down the store. The first enemy that will come out to greet us is this Elgato. Now, he and Hollywood are very hard to get rid of because they move incredibly fast. So if you're not comfortable, you can always you can wipe them out. But anyway, there will be two members of the Headbutt Brigade coming out to greet us. So you will definitely want to get away from these enemies as quickly as possible. And then if you're running low on health, you can always go back and pick up the steak and whatever food item you get. But overall, we want to move faster. Now, once we reach to this point right here, where our character is, we can force Eddie to come right out real early. You want to be at the lower planes. Eddie can be grabbed. You just do not want him grabbing you. So make sure you position yourself in an area where he can't grab you. Now, once he gets to his last health, he will start getting ready to fire the gun. Now, normally he starts firing right off the gate, but once he gets to this point, he'll start moving out of the way. So once he gets to the last part of his health bar, he will start moving to the sides and open fire. Now, technically, we want to use this strat because if we go all the way to confront him, Maggear minions will start coming out. So we do not want to be dealing with those guys, and that will keep us safe. So, for the most part, if you don't want to deal with the Elgato here, just get rid of him real quickly. It does cost you time, though, but it's a little bit safer. Now, you do want to move fast because the enemies, the Headbutt Brigade, will come after you. And if you're running low on health, you can always pick up the steak and the other food item. But if you do that, you'll have to deal with these enemies too. But technically, the whole general gist of going through this area is to get through this area quickly. But anyway, I am showing you how to do this, so let's get that, let's redo this area again and try to avoid dealing with the enemies this time around. Well, my attempt to get past them didn't work. But yeah, it's not easy trying to move forward quickly, even with backward jumps. Yeah, I held down and it did not want to register my chain throw. It's so weird on playing on a Switch 2 Pro controller. I don't know if it has anything to do with the D-pad or whatever. But yeah, if you're having problems dealing with the Elgato, it's best to get rid of them because these guys do not, they're not very easy to elude. All right, there we go. Now, for the speed run, I'm going to save right here. And I'm going to go over the strat you need to deal with Eddie. So let's say if you go all the way over here, you definitely want to pick up Gum if you're low on health. Position your character pretty much on the upper or lower axis of where Eddie is. Eddie will not fire his gun if you're near him. But it's very hard to deal with because the enemies will get in front of you, and you can always turn his gun on his allies rather than you. So if you're having problems getting past him, but yeah, that's basically how you deal with Eddie if you go all the way to the end. But technically, for speedrun purposes, we do not want to do that. So I'm going to show you how you do it. So you see that guy in the middle of the car here? I'm going to position my character right here. So this will force Eddie to come out. And this is basically what you want to be doing. Now, he can't be grabbed right after you do your first throw. But technically, you want to beat him before he gets his lackeys. And that's all there is to fighting Eddie. So basically, when you get through with West Side, your ultimate goal is to pretty much make your way to the end as quickly as possible. Of course, keep in mind when you're doing back jumping, the enemies will indeed try to come after you. So if you're not comfortable of trying to elude the Elgato, your best bet is pretty much just to defeat him so he doesn't come after you instead. And basically, you want to force Eddie to come out of his safe spot so he doesn't bring out his fellow gang members. And basically, you want to position him down here so you can basically just grab him. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that Eddie has a pretty nasty swing. And the faster you get rid of Eddie, the less you have to deal with the Mad Gear gang, pretty much. Alright, so that completes round 3 guide. Sorry there wasn't a whole lot to discuss. But it's pretty much a short level, but it could be pretty chaotic because the enemy gang ups start becoming more commonplace than it was on rounds 2 and 1. Of course, whether or not you get a large amount of enemies depends whether or not you choose to eliminate them or try to avoid them and just fight them when you get to the force point, where you're forced to fight all of them. But technically, it's pretty much more easier said than done trying to elude them. But technically, if the enemies start getting too close, don't be afraid to whip out your extra joy. And if you need to, just move up or down the planes and do your reverse jumping on there. But try to make sure that when you're doing reverse jumping, you do your down aerial attacks. So that way you can either knock them aside with Hagar's body splash or stun them briefly with Cody's knee drop or Guy's elbow drop. So I'm going to go ahead and create a save point right here for round 4. That'll be covered next time after I upload this video to YouTube and get this highlighted here first on Twitch. But anyway, that's going to cover my guide for West Side for Final Fight round 3. So next time we will resume, I'll be covering round 4, which is the industrial area, and probably has one of the most difficult bosses in the entire game, being Relento. And one of the bosses that was unfortunately omitted in the home console versions for the Super Nintendo. But anyway, we'll cover that another day. And I will catch you all later. Be sure to tune in around 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Street Fighter 6. We're going to be continuing with World Tour. I did make it to the point where I'm at Hagar's Memorial Stadium to take part in the tournament that's going to be featured there. Hopefully, we'll see how that goes. And I'll have some pretty interesting tidbits as to why Sodom got a skin in Street Fighter 6 as opposed to being playable. So anyway, I'll see you all later. today. This is RotorStorm331 signing off. Have a great day. Take care, and I will see you all next.